Greetings brothers, welcome to the weekly tactics video, and today we've got an exciting interview with Jack Harpster, who recently went 7-1 in the Orlando US Open, and he actually finished third. So stick around and we'll get all the information on how he managed to do this playing Blood Angels in 9th edition. If we're just meeting, I'm John, the BA Commander, and every week on this channel we do various videos designed to help you get the most out of your Blood Angels and win more games on the tabletop. So if that's something you're interested in, please consider subscribing. And if you get any value in today's video, I'd love it if you would hit that like button. It just lets more people find out about the channel, and they're super appreciated. So I sat down this week and talked to Jack, and we're going to get right into that in just a second, but he definitely goes for the full melee Blood Angels threat that used to be very, very popular. Now I think this is a very high skill cap and a difficult list to run in 9th edition, so I don't actually run it personally, and I prefer, and I have been saying for a long time, I prefer to include 500 points of shooting, give or take, in my 9th edition army list. And I was at a tournament last week, and I'm going to be breaking down my tournament next Friday. So if you want to get the information on how to do basically this week, we're going to look at melee. Next week, we're going to look at a balanced army. So hopefully you can get some great value in these, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks ever so much for watching. Alright, I'm here with Jack Harpster, who recently went 7-1 in the US Open in Orlando, and you beat Dark Elder/Elder in the third place game. Thank you so much for being here, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
I've had so many requests to speak to you on this channel because you run, I guess, what is kind of what everybody thinks that Blood Angels should be, right? Like the full Sanguinary Guard. I think you have, is it 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, a giant squad of Vanguard veterans, the Death Company, the Sanguinary Ancient with the Wrath of Baal, which I had great difficulty making on work in 9th edition, and you came third in the US Open. So yeah, thanks again for being here, and yeah, I mean, where do you want to start? Like,
So we can talk about the list. So basically, I picked it up like, I don't know, maybe it was right after ACO, which is about a month before, and I was spending that week with my family in New Jersey. And my army had to go back. I was playing Death Watch. My army had to go back to Florida so that John could use it, and different John, so that John could use it at some tournament or whatever. So I had no army, and I got invited out to a small RTT, and somebody supplied Blood Angels that I could take. And I was like, all right, sounds fun. I have a friend who plays Blood Angels. And so I originally designed some kind of triple Redemptor nonsense that wouldn't have even been very good. And they didn't have 3 Redemptors. So I'm like, screw it. We're going all combat. Here's 3 big units of Sangard. It was very close to the final list, actually, that I ended up running to Orlando. And I took it, and I won the event. And I was like, you know, that's kind of fun. That's a fun list. I don't hate it. I mean, I was kind of running as a meme, but it feels kind of strong, to be honest. And I took it on stream a couple times for the Art of War, and I beat Nick senseless twice, and generally did pretty well. I was like, okay, I mean, this is a fun meme army. And then the terrain comes out for Orlando, and it's walls and line of sight blocking everywhere, and shooting is now the meme. And I looked at the army and I said, you know what? I think this is actually very strong now. I think this is actually really strong. Because if you haven't seen the GW Open terrains, they are super constricted, super line of sight blocking everywhere. You can basically get on top of your opponent without them being able to see you at all. And so I was like, yeah, it seems really strong, actually. I'm not as good with White Scars as John Lennon is. So I don't generally like White Scars very much. Black Templars, I was playing around with Black Templars. I couldn't really make them work to how I was feeling about it. I think I'm playing Black Templars to this next one that's coming up. I'm sorry.
sorry.
I couldn't quite make them work how I wanted, and I was like, you know what? I just want to play Blood Angels. I think they're really good here. I think they have some really strong abilities, especially on the GW Open terrain. I legitimately think this went from like something I thought was a meme to something I think is really strong. So the final list is a Chaplain on a bike. He's your Warlord. He has 2 Warlord traits and a relic. The relic is Armor Indomitus. One of the Warlord traits is Gift of Foresight for a reroll hit, wound, and saving throw every turn, which is an absurd Warlord trait. It's super good. And then his other Warlord trait is to give you a second relic, which is the Adamantine Mantle. So all told, this man is incredibly durable. He is 8 wounds, 5 up feel no pain, 2 up armor, 4 up invuln, 3 up once a game. He has access to transhuman, and he rerolls a hit, a wound, and a saving throw every single turn. Your turn, my turn, every turn. So he is incredibly hard to put down.
Yeah, I actually only realised maybe a week or two before my tournament that with the Armour Indomitus, you don't have to activate it until you have to make the saves, which I think is like pushes it onto the next level, right? I was dealing with a knight that's doing flat 6 damage, so you wait till you know how many saves you make, and then you go, okay, Armour Indomitus. So yeah, I talked a little bit about this character. I run a captain on a bike, but basically identical Warlord traits to you. So I take it you use this guy for Angel Sacrifice, that sort of thing as well.
He's an amazing Angel Sacrifice. I believe Armor Indomitus is when you're targeted. I believe it's when you're targeted.
No,
I could be wrong.
I think you might have that one wrong. I thought it was that as well.
Cheating myself, I guess.
You're making it more difficult on yourself, yeah. I'll pull it up while you're talking.
You could absolutely be right on that. I know transhuman is a big part of why he's super durable, because I did have a knight, the actual flat 6 damage or 8 damage or whatever Knight Lancer charge into him and do 0 damage, because you just reroll 3 up invuln, reroll saves, all of that, and suddenly he takes no damage. Yeah, and you also have an apothecary next to him who just heals him for flat 3 if he gets wounded, and just shrug it off.
Yeah, the exact text is once per battle before making a saving throw for the bearer, it can be activated as an armor force field. So basically you can wait. I mean, your opponent could slow roll the dice to try and trick you up, but I mean, like, that never happens, right? Or that very rarely happens.
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's really, really solid. And you generally only have to pop it once a game, because they only are going to hit him really hard once. And then he's incredibly hard to put away. And he also hits really hard. I mean, in Assault Doctrine, he has 7 attacks, rerolling a hit roll, +1 to wound, rerolling a wound roll. Like, he puts the damage in that you need. And with that's with Mantra of Strength. Mm-hmm. So with Mantra of Strength, he's 3 damage, 7 attacks, AP 2, Strength 7, +1 to wound, just getting in there.
Yeah, it's a great character to have as your Warlord, I think.
Yes, yeah. Then I have Dante, not as my Warlord, and I think Dante's really good. I think he's not good as your Warlord. He does have the ability where you get 1 CP if he is your Warlord, but his Warlord trait is not that good, in my opinion, and you can't double up Warlord traits with him if he is your Warlord. So I would much rather just have 2 Warlord traits on the Chaplain than 1 Warlord trait that's kind of mediocre, and then you get 1 CP back.
Yeah.
But Dante, in my opinion, is phenomenal. He's basically, I'm maxing out Warlord traits and relics, so Dante is like a captain with a jump pack that has a Warlord trait and a relic, functionally, because he's better than a captain would be otherwise, without costing me any slots for those, because he hits really hard. It's like he has a relic weapon, and he has a 2-up armor save, which captains would have to have a storm shield for, and he on death for free can do a stratagem. I mean, he does a stratagem for free. It's always either pulling attacks onto himself with Angel Sacrifice, in which case he dies, or it's fight on death, and Dante loves to die.
That's true, I'll give you that,
yeah. So I think he's phenomenal. You want a chapter master in the list in general, and I think Dante is just cheaper and better than a captain you get in the same slot.
Okay.
Then I have 3 of those, and I have the Sanguinary Priest with the jump pack. He has the 3-inch aura of 6 up, feel no pain, which is pretty nice. He can resurrect models, which can give you extra distance. But the key thing is he puts units into Assault Doctrine, which very much matters early. This list oftentimes will put 3 units into Assault Doctrine, 1 for free, 1 for 2 CP, 1 for 1 CP off the Sanguinary Priest, and you just can get them. In addition, so he reses models, which gives you the ability to ignore your opponent's chip damage a lot of the time. The Eldar Indirect generally can bounce off you because they're going to kill like 4 or 5 guys. You res 1, you can kind of exist in the center of the board not doing anything, scoring your points. They have to come to you. And I gave him the Teeth of Terra, because without Teeth of Terra, he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, And with Teeth of Terror, he is terrifying in combat. So I love doing that.
What is that with Teeth of Terror? Like 8 attacks, strength 5 minus 2 or something?
8 attacks, strength 5 minus, I think it's 3 with Assault Doctrine, I believe. I could be wrong on that. 2 damage. Then I have a squad of Incursors, just to be an advanced deploy, something up there to make room for Death Company, so your opponent can't deploy like Mandrakes or whatever to stop your Death Company from getting in. So a squad of Incursors, 2 squads of Intercessors with auto bolt rifles. Then I get to the really fun part of the list, the Sanguinary Ancient, Wrath of Ball of the Relic, and Rites of War. So Wrath of Ball lets all your jump pack units, and there will be some coming up, move 2 extra inches, which gives you a massive increase on your mobility. Think about it, like White Scars have advance and charge, and you have move +2, charge +2 off the Chaplain, because the Chaplain has the chance to do that. So you're about as mobile as White Scars. And Rites of War is vital to winning, especially at like once you get higher in tournaments, you need to have OBSEC on all your models. Because otherwise your opponent can just throw 5 witches onto an objective, take it away from you. It makes it really easy to do that. And having Rites of War for OBSEC just makes taking your objectives away a lot harder. Then I have 2 7-man Sanguinary Guard squads and a 6-man Sanguinary Guard squad. I would give them all axes if I could. As it was, each unit had 2 swords because I just didn't have the models for it. They hit absurdly. I love Sanguinary Guard so much.
I actually kind of dig the swords. I'm a 50-50 man, and the reason that I like the swords is you do remove some of the swinginess, right? And I mean the swinginess in opponents' armor saves, right? Because when you're hitting them with the swords, you are hitting them at like -4. So even if they have like generally a very good save, then they just do not get a save, which is, like sometimes on the axes you let them save on the 6s, and like you do. There's a bit of swinginess in there, so like I don't dislike swords, but I totally understand why I think most people think axes are better.
So if we look at the units that Blood Angels actually have problems killing, the units that are difficult generally all have a 4-up, sometimes a 5-up invuln save, and at that point the advantages on the swords are negligible. A lot of the times that's your Terminators. That is your Custodes, that's your... Even Dreadnoughts most of the time have a 5-up. Yeah, Death Guard can be an issue. And hitting Strength 6 with +1 to wound means you're wounding Death Guard on 2s. That feels really good.
Yeah,
same with
that's
Custodes.
Nice. Yeah.
But the swords put in a little more work than I thought they would, to be honest. Like, not giving Helverins or Warglaves any save. That really helped. Just going right through Marines like they were nothing, that really helps. But I would generally put axes if I can. I love Sanguinary Guard. They're so good. Their shooting is non-negligible. Your opponent looks at your list, says there's no shooting in that list, and then all of a sudden your auto bolt rifles fire, and then your Sanguinary Guard squads shoot. A lot of the time at AP2 on the second turn of the game, which is the turn a lot of the time you send a unit in or 2 units in. They're hitting on 2s if they're near your Warlord, which, by the way, is the Chaplain that will never die. So he's always the last model left alive. So your Sanguinary Guard are hitting on 2s in shooting. You just pick up little squads, little sister squads. No, you're dead. You're dead. Get out of here. I don't need to charge you.
Nice.
After that, I have a 10-man Vanguard Veteran squad with Lightning Claws and Storm Shields. And then I have a 5-man Death Company unit with 4 Thunderhammers.
Yeah, I had a question about that, I guess. I personally have dropped Death Company from my list because I don't think they're durable. So when I saw you with 4 Thunderhammers in your list, I was like, wow, that is brave, I guess. How do you play them? Did you Forlorn Fury them, or were they deep striking? What was your thoughts on the Death Company?
I would almost always Forlorn Fury. So you do that after you know whether you're going first. So obviously if you're going first, you can just jet them off the board if you need to. I had a couple games on stream. One of them was pretty much decided by a turn 1, run them 26 inches up the board because it's 12, and then it's 14, and then charge with all the buffs. And I just peeled up a lot of his infantry and blocked in his dreadnoughts from being able to move up the board. But for every game you do that, think about this: the board state, right? They go first. They want to just move up the board and prevent you from hiding in the center, because your army doesn't, like, Blood Angels don't shoot. I mean, they can, but why would you take a Blood Angel army if you're you know, if you're going to make a shooting army. They don't shoot better than any other kind of Marine. So you're generally going to be good in combat, bad at shooting. What you want to do is you want to be in the center of the board. You want to be hiding. You want to make it so your opponent can't leave their deployment zone, right? If they have to stay in their deployment zone to not get charged, you control 2/3 of the board. You're going to win on points. You don't have to do a single thing that whole game. So your opponent will try to prevent this by moving their shooting up, so that if you try to go to the center of the board, they will move up, see you, and kill you. What you can do to prevent that is you're going second. You move your Forlorn Fury unit of Death Company up behind something in the center of the board. And all of a sudden, if they want to also move up, you're hitting them. Turn 2, you have a counter punch that wouldn't have existed otherwise. They are a little more vulnerable against indirect specifically, but they should never get seen unless you're going to charge. That's the way I played them anyways. I just stayed behind line of sight, stayed behind line of sight blocking, stayed behind line of sight blocking, and then got in there.
Yeah, I played one game using the terrain that you mentioned from the like the GW terrain that they unfortunately we don't have those big clear bases ourselves to play more games, so we were kind of like jerry rigging something, but it does seem like a very advantageous set of terrain for the melee armies, right? Like it's heavier than I guess what we would normally play with, I guess. I felt like it was like quite often you go to a tournament and sometimes you can go to the tournament and like you look at the terrain and you're like, there's nowhere to hide for me. Like this is going to be a rough tournament. And cool. Okay, so the Death Company were Forlorn Fury. What about the Vanguard veterans? Do you keep them as 10 most of the time, or did you combat squad them? What was your thoughts on them?
I combat squatted them every game. The only time I figured it out, the only time I wouldn't combat squad is if you're playing into Dark Angels. Because a 10-man Dark Angel Terminator unit with -1 damage, transhuman all the time, the only way to kill it is a 10-man Van Vet squad with every buff going in. Because you don't care if it's -1 damage, you're already 1 damage 1. You don't care if you're wounding on 4s, you already do. So just get in there. That's the only time I would leave them together. Otherwise, I'd split them up. A lot of the times they're the first wave in because they have no shooting. So they would go in, they'd hit things, and then your opponent would hit them back, and then all the Sanguinary Guard jump up, fire like 40 shots into their army, hitting on 2s, kill all the like little weak chaff stuff, and then just charge the heck out of them. That's one game plan, is if your opponent opens up, you can just get them. You just dive on them, you just kill them, they're dead, get out of here. I think a key to actually making this army work that a lot of people are missing is that what you want to do is you don't want to just run at your opponent. Even though this army's fast, it's very tough. Like it's very durable and light cover. Everything has a 1-up armor save pretty much, or 2-up with +1. Most armies out there can kill you. If you just put your army in the open, they can cut you off at the knees, and it's going to just really suck. You're going to feel like your army didn't do anything. But what you can do is move to stay out of line of sight, move to control objectives, move to make it so if your opponent wants to move forward and play the game, that's when you get your charges. And playing more cagey and just trying to take the center of the board from your opponent will make them come to you. And then when they come to you, get those perfect charges that you love as a Blood Angel player. Just get in there and just charge them, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and kill them.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we kind of play the same strategy, only I guess I am back in my first couple of turns up where I am more cagey with a couple of Redemptors and a Tech Marine, you know, like and that worked out pretty well for me. I like Redemptors a lot, but
they're pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing to say about the Redemptors that I think works in my list is that if people are shooting the Redemptors, then they're not shooting my Sandguard, they're not shooting my Vanguard veterans, you know, and this is usually how I win games. It's the Redemptors are almost like your distraction Carnifex, if you you know, if you still use that analogy, I guess. And I like Redemptors in close combat as well. I mean, they're, you know, D3+3 is still pretty nice on their fists. So secondaries then, I mean, I feel like, yeah, why don't you tell me what you liked? I feel like I'm guessing it's going to be Engage or Relentless Assault. It's going to be Retrieve Data, and then probably Oath of Moment or something. Or what did you find was best with this?
So you're right that it's Retrieve Octarius Data and Oath of Moment. Although I will take one of the good secondary objectives over that, like the one on Vital Intelligence, or the one on priority targets or sweep and clear. Those are all fantastic. They actually did sweep and clear twice in the tournament, and that was amazing. The one I would actually take is Stranglehold. I personally am the biggest fan in the world of Stranglehold as a secondary, and it's very flexible, right? I want to play for objectives as is because that's how you win the game of 40k. And if I get rewarded with my secondary for holding objectives without having to do anything extra, I love it. Relentless Assault is a good secondary. I do like it. The problem is it commits you to a game plan where you are shoving your units into their deployment zone every turn. And some games that is not tenable. Some matchups, some terrain layouts, that is just not a feasible strategy. Or partway through the game, turn 2, you find, damn, I'm dying way too fast. I can't keep this up if I keep shoving units into his deployment zone. I'm going to lose board control. And at that point, you're out of luck. Like, you're committed to Relentless Assault. You're either going to get like a 4 on it and keep your army alive, or you're just going to lose your army to get Relentless Assault. So I love Stranglehold because I'm holding objectives anyway. I'm looking to control 60% of the board, 70% of the board, and win off that. And Stranglehold's great for that. So Stranglehold, Oath of Moments, again, the same thing. I want to control the center of the board. I just want to control territory. And killing them is secondary. So Stranglehold, Relentless Assault, and then Retrieve Octarius Data. Any of your units can go back up in the sky as long as they're core, and then they can come down late in the game when your opponent doesn't have very much left, score the last rod or whatever like that.
Okay, and then the Rights of War on your Sang Ancient, is he... I guess you said that your Sang Guard are usually going to be with the Warlord. Is your Sang Ancient just with them, or do you sort of hit them and then spread? What's...
So generally the way the game plays out is you move most of your stuff up to the center of the board or near the center of the board behind line of sight blocking terrain. Now, in GW terrain, you always have exactly the same terrain every time. So I always knew I could move my units up behind those little pieces of terrain in the center, or I could move them up into the big line of sight blockers near the center. So you just move up turn 1, maybe hit them with your Forlorn Fury Death Company. Maybe not. Maybe just move to a good position they can't hit you back that threatens more of the board. And then you pass the turn back to them. And then you give them a choice. You are hiding in the center of the board on objectives or near objectives. And if they want to play the game at all, they have to come to you. And if they don't, then they don't get to shoot you. They don't get to fight you. They don't get to do anything. You will sit in the center. You'll score your Oath. You'll score your Stranglehold. That's the other things. I can sit in the center of the board and score Stranglehold, Oath, and most of my rods without having to expose a single unit.
Yeah, because all that GW terrain, every single piece, I think, was line of sight blocking, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if the ones in the center of the board, on the diagonal deployments or the hammer and anvil deployments, you can see through them if you touch them, which has an effect that if the shooting army can get close, then you can no longer move to the center of the board because they'll just walk up, see through, kill you. But if you move to the center of the board first, then they can't, because if they have to take 2 turns to get to the terrain, and by that point you'll be all over them. The other thing that's really good about the list, once you post it up in the middle of the board, is you have 6 or 7 units to play with. You have 6 units basically if you combat squad, and you can just throw one in a turn. They will die, that is totally fine. You just throw one in, take an objective away, score a secondary, do something like that. Block their movement is a big one. That's a big thing. Just literally throwing a unit up and saying, you can't move towards me right now. You're staying on your objective, you're staying in your deployment zone, that's fine. And you just keep doing that every turn of the game, and you will end the game with almost no units, and that's totally fine because you've won the game on points.
Yeah. I guess one question I might have for this list then, like, at the weekend I played a list that had 6 raiders, and I actually think I played 2 lists that had 6 raiders, and one of them was the game I lost. And as you expect with raiders, they sit multiple ones on objectives, and when you finally do kill them, they spit out 10 OBSEC units, and you have real problems. You obviously played one game against Dark Elder. Did you have any, what's the strategy for dealing with raiders, I guess, in this list?
Yeah, I played one game against my buddy Mark, who had 3 raiders and some Elder Indirect, which is which is doable for Blood Angels. That matchup is fine, I think. You have enough high armor that their indirect doesn't do quite as much to you. But I also played a game on stream against like 6 or 7 raiders, chock full of just all the nastiness Dark Eldar has. That matchup, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, is not great. It kind of sucks. But I was able to get through it. You do have some things in your arsenal that you can pull out. I've played that matchup twice with Blood Angels, and both times I was able to get a win out. You do have to know your combat phase perfectly. Unfortunately, you have to play it. You have to know what's in their army too, because there are plenty of gotchas in Dark Eldar. Like if you forget that they can make you fight last with their incubi, that can lose you an entire game. So unfortunately, mistakes are super punished with this list, but you do have some things that you can use. One is Hammer of Wrath is a big way to get around incubi, or to get around any kind of combat character that's scary. You throw 5 to 7 models with jump packs, make sure they're all in engagement range, and then for every die that equals or exceeds for each guy in engagement range, you roll a die, and each die that equals or exceeds their toughness does a mortal. So I've charged, 7 Sanguinary Guard into 5 incubi, and before they were able to roll their dice to make me fight last, I just rolled, 5-7 dice and just killed the whole squad. That helps a lot. I killed an Archon with a 2-up invuln that way, because he took some wounds on his normal invuln because he didn't want to pop his shadow field, and he was like staring at me going, "What are you going to do about it?" And then I just ran 5 guys and went, "Here's 4 mortal wounds, die."
Okay.
So that helps a lot, using those ways to get around it. Fight on Death is an excellent way to get around interrupts. So if you throw in Dante into a unit of incubi, if they make him fight last, that's fine, because you will at least kill the incubi. They have a limited number of ways to kill your 2-up armor save stuff, but they're very good at it. So you have to get rid of those pieces as fast as possible. Incubi are a big one. Now, luckily, your leadership basically 10 across the board, because Van Vets are lead 9 on the Sergeant, Sangar lead 9 on the Sergeant, and your Chaplain has an aura of lead 9, and then your Sanguinary Ancient has an aura of +1. So it really helps into incubi or any leadership shenanigans like that. But you will generally take the first hit from them. So you do have to position in such a way that your interrupts are good, and also if you can heroic with characters in and then force them to fight your characters, you can keep your big units alive. What I did against my opponent in this tournament was I actually wrapped and trapped a couple raiders, where I charged like 4 raiders at once, and 3 of them I managed to make it so that no model could get out once I killed the raider. So one of them there was one with like a squad of witches and a squad of incubi, I think. There was another one with, it might have just been 2 squads of witches and a character. There was another one with blood brides and a character, and these characters will rip you apart. So I'm very happy I got them. There's another one with blood brides and a character. That all died in the transport. Like witches, incubi, blood brides, and like 2 characters or 1 character or something. They all died in the transport. And then on the other side of the board, he emergency disembarked, which lets you get out 6 instead of 3, which is almost impossible to stop. So I didn't even try. I just forced him to pick one of them. Drazar and 10 incubi.
Okay. How many? Because obviously I know about wrapping and trapping, and I never managed to get, like, I guess my list has enough shooting in there, and I do take those plasmas and stuff, and I usually sprinkle in some infernal pistols as well. I think they're great for, like, on close range, which you usually are. I'm usually in a good enough position to make my Sanguinary Guard. They're going to be rolling less than 6 for a charge, which means you get to shoot an infernal pistol or 2, which means you can usually pop a transport. But I never actually tried it, and I don't have anyone that plays Dark Eldar in my meta. But how many models do you realistically need to wrap a raider?
I'd say probably 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I figured.
Luckily, 2 of his raiders were right next to each other, which helped it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's bad position on his part, but probably 2. Since you're running 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard plus the 2-inch movement, you have a very good chance of being able to wrap something. If your opponent It's probably quite hard actually, because I mean I find opponent, like, I don't run the Wrath of Baal. I have run it in previous editions. I haven't been running it in 9th editions, but opponents still struggle with sort of that 12-inch move and the +1 to charge. So I imagine with the 14-inch move and multiple squads of them, you can use that pretty effectively.
Yeah, it's a very easy mistake to make. I'm not faulting my opponent at all. He was pretty good. No, especially since you have the Chaplain Aura for +2 charge, which doesn't stack, but still +2 is better than +1. And critically, +3-inch pile-ins and consolidates, which means your units can go really far on pile-ins and consolidates. I had a unit of Incursors charge the two boats, and then they didn't do any damage, but with the 6-inch, or with just pile-ins and consolidates, they just got a really far distance around the back one and blocked it off. So using that can really help your mobility, especially if you need to go tag something. I was getting hit really hard in a game at that little RTT by somebody who had a unit of Hive Guard, of all things, that just happened to be really good into Marines. And I managed to charge with everything into a Demicaran, including my Warlord. The Sangard killed the Demicaran, and the Warlord activated, piled in 6 inches with his aura up, and then consolidated another 6 inches to go touch the Hive Guard so they couldn't shoot me. So it gives you a lot of movement-based tricks to let you get out of situations like that. It also means that you're very hard to predict, because you can move in combat a very long way. The 6-inch heroic also on the Sangard is huge for controlling objectives.
Yeah,
your opponent can't just run onto it.
Yeah, I used that this tournament actually, and yeah, the same thing with that is that is essentially 9 more inches of movement you can get out in your opponent's phase if you use it correctly. All right, great. I guess couple of final questions maybe. How do you find not having a psyker for? I suppose on this Games Workshop terrain map, it actually probably favors you. Or gives a I don't think it favors the melee army, I guess, but it gives the melee army a very good chance. Because I just played against Thousand Suns with their new codex, and I swear the guy did 17 mortal wounds to me in turn 1 from the psychic phase.
They can do a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, so just was there any problems in any of the games against armies that had a lot of psychic because there's no denies, or you just learn to adapt around that?
So generally, when you have a psyker, your opponent is going to be able to get around your denies most of the time with their most important spells. They're ones that make their army go can generally stay outside that aura. So it's not as big of a deal. What it would be nice for is some of the spells like a 5-up invuln and things like that. I feel totally fine not taking the psyker. You have as many buffs as you want in the army. I don't think you need more. You have +1 to hit off the Ancient. You have full rerolls off of Dante. You have +1 to hit off the Chaplain because all the Sangard get +1 off of him. So everyone's hitting on 2s, rerolling. Everyone's wounding on absurd numbers. I don't really feel the need for a Librarian in there, especially since I've maxed out slots, and I 100% wouldn't split into 2 detachments first off, and wouldn't drop any of my HQs for a Librarian. I'm not saying he's bad, but I think he might be a little unnecessary in my particular list. With your list, with all the Dreadnoughts, a 5-up Invulnora it could go a long way. So it's just a different list, I think.
Yeah, I guess some people really like the Librarian with the jump back because of Null Zone, I guess, with those, like you said, those Sanguinary Guards hit really hard. So if you come up against an army that has a lot of reliable invulnerable saves, then Null Zone can bring insane value. I played against a Harlequins player that he spent 2 or 3 CP, I think, to raise a 3+ invulnerable save in all his jet bikes real near my Chaplain, and I was just rubbing my hands with glee. I was like, well, those are CP you'll never see again.
Exactly. So it's not bad for Null Zone. Null Zone is like a benefit to taking a Psyker. If I'm taking a Psyker anyway, I'll give him Null Zone.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't take a Librarian just for Null Zone, especially since you are Blood Angels. You hit absurdly hard in combat. I don't care what kind of invulnerable save they have. Here's 30 wounds. Have fun.
Yeah. Okay, and then I guess the last question maybe to ask would be if you were maybe playing on a map that had a little less terrain, throughout the middle. Do you think that some way to disable Overwatch would have been helpful, or you're not overly worried about Overwatch in this edition?
So characters get around a lot of the issues. You sacrifice your characters early and often. Getting around Overwatch is one of the things you can do. You just throw a character in there ahead of time. Most of the time, they won't even Overwatch because it's not worth picking up the character if the unit's going to die anyway. And if they do Overwatch the character, then the unit that is steamrolling in behind them is going to be okay. In addition, you can just charge with the chaplain first, and the chaplain probably won't die to any kind of Overwatch he's taking. He's so durable that they won't even try. And then you get in there for free. Angel Sacrifice is absurd. It's an absurd stratagem. You can negate your opponent's interrupt by just slamming a character into every combat, and no matter where they interrupt, you're like, "No, you're fighting my character. You're fighting my character right now." Oh, you killed Dante. That's cool. Whatever. You're getting tabled. So you can prevent interrupts that way. You can heroic, especially 6-inch heroic off of the Sanguinary Ancient, and then use Angel Sacrifice to just protect a squad that then rips whatever tried to charge it apart and then gets further up the board, and it's a trade your opponent wasn't anticipating. Dante can 1 CP make him fight them and then fight on death for free and just tear something apart. So it's a very strong, very versatile stratagem. Like I was in combat with a Telemon forever, just bashing away at it, and it had to keep fighting my chaplain. Just over and over again, just bonking away at this chaplain. So it's very strong. It's very strong against Mortarion because the chaplain can just run in there along with the squad, and it'll take him like 4 turns to get Mortarion out of there. He'll eventually get out, but he spent the entire game in 1 combat. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, things like that, very, very helpful.
Cool. I think that's about all the questions I had. I've been showing some slides while I've been recording this, so my channel will see some of the slides that I sent you the other day. But I think that's about it. I think probably maybe I've been relying on my Whirlwind too much, because how you describe using Angel Sacrifice and potential some of these heroic interventions. See, I usually, when I was fighting Dark Elder Incubi, I would typically, if I got them out of the transport with another unit, then I would suppress them with the Whirlwind so that they are going to fight last. And the nice thing, I guess, about Suppression Fire is it does carry into the opponent's turn as well. So when they do charge, they are still in that sort of middle bracket of fighting now. I guess it's not, although it's fight last, it just moves them down into that middle bracket now.
Out, yeah.
So it means you can pick a unit to kill them, I guess, before they fight you. But yeah, using Angel Sacrifice, I love that stratagem as well. I definitely used it this weekend to save my squad of Sanguinary Guard. But maybe better positioning means that the Whirlwind becomes a little less relevant. Do you like, random topic or random question, do you like the Judiciar as well on Blood Angels, or have you tried it?
I don't. I think it's very awkward to try to get him into the position you want, to try and get him around your models. It's a 3-inch range, right?
Yeah.
Or 6-inch.
3-inch range.
Your models are 32 inches, and if he's towards the front, then your opponent will be able to just kill him a lot of the times. And if he's towards the back, it's really hard to get him around your own models, even if you give him... I don't even know if he can take a 6-inch heroic.
He can, yeah. He can take Selfless Valor, which helps a bit, I think.
I know Black Templars can give him that, and that's what I was considering originally. But I played around with it, and you can just never get him in there because your own models are blocking, or if not enough of your models are blocking, then they can just kill him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people out there do like the Whirlwind. Personally, I don't. I feel like it's a lot of points and CP to... So, offensively... theory around fight last is it's a very good thing to throw out offensively. Like you throw it out, then you charge in a bunch of places, and they can't interrupt on the place where you made them fight last. That helps simplify combat. But defensively, where you throw it out and then try and prevent them from charging you, it generally doesn't work against players who know like tricks to get around your making them fight last. I just played a game against John with my Black Templars. Every single time he charged in, he would throw in like a random unit to base all my models, so that if I wanted to swing back at him, if I wanted to interrupt, only one of my models was going to get to swing. And it wouldn't have mattered if his hammer unit fought last or not. Like it wouldn't have mattered. I wasn't going to do enough damage. Then he was going to pile in and hit me. So a lot of the time you can get around fight last if your opponent puts it on your unit and then just assumes that unit can't go in. It still can most of the time if your opponent knows how to get around that. So I don't personally like the Whirlwind as much, especially since you can already stop interrupts with Angel Sacrifice plays most of the time. Now, I get some people have done very well with it. I know a friend of mine, Sasha Edelkraut, did really well with them in his did really well with one of them in his Black Templars list. They took to Atlantic City. So I can't fault that. Some people have had success with them. I personally don't like them.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I've felt like it's benefited my list a lot, but I think you do get to a point where maybe you rely on it a little bit more than maybe you should, you know? Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. And you said, obviously, you're part of Art of War. I will put a link in the video description so people can go over there and subscribe to you guys as well. Is there anywhere else you would like to shout out while you're on here?
Well, my friend Jim Stanley, he plays a lot of Blood Angels. He's a big Blood Angel guy. If you're listening, I love you, Jim. But no, other than that, Art of War, we make a lot of content. Some of it's free on YouTube. We make a lot of games where you see an entire game. I have some Blood Angels ones up there. We like to talk about what we're doing, what we're thinking during the game. I've steamrolled Nick twice on stream. Let me see, what did he use? He used his Death Guard, and I steamrolled his Orcs. I think that one's not on YouTube. That one's on our website. But we make a lot of content, and we do coaching as well.
Okay, yeah, so if people want to see more games, then definitely check out Jack and Art of War. Like I said, it'll be in the video description. Thank you so much for taking the time again, Jack, to do this with us.
A lot of fun.
And I will try and answer the million comments that we get on this video, no doubt. And maybe if there's some very good questions, I'll maybe send them to you on Facebook as well. So
absolutely, I love Blood Angels. I've had a ton of fun with them. They can be very competitive, but they are very punishing to mistakes. Unfortunately, because you lose like a 200 and some point unit. Yeah, but they can be quite good if you just control the board and let your opponent come to you.
So leave a comment down below and I will try my best to answer any of your questions. I think that the terrain at this tournament is really interesting. It's almost too obscuring in some ways. It gives melee armies like a very good advantage. I'm not sure they're going to stick with this terrain. I guess we'll see. The tournament I was at definitely had less obscuring pieces that were blocking like huge firing arcs. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from Jack and his list, and thank you again to Jack so much for coming on the show. And like I said, there'll be a link down below to Art of War YouTube channel if you want to see some of Jack's games, and he definitely has some on there already. Just head over there and check them out. I'll catch you in the next video, guys. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.